Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is quite literally all around us, but often completely invisible. We are going to unpack exactly how culture builds soft power and shapes the global power dynamics of our world today. You might not realize it, but your favorite movies, the tech apps you scroll through every day, and even the street food you love are all part of this massive, strategic, global chessboard. We usually think of national power in terms of giant militaries and booming economies, right? But today we're looking at something much more subtle, yet incredibly potent.
So, I want to start by posing a really fascinating question, one that strikes right at the heart of how influence actually works in the modern era. How do you conquer the world without firing a single shot? Seriously, think about it. In a world where all-out conflict can lead to unthinkable global destruction, nations have had to find a completely different, much smarter way to assert themselves and protect their interests.
To get there, we're going to sharply contrast two very different concepts. First up, you have the heavy metal, the steel and grit of traditional hard power. This is the realm of military coercion, tanks, and what Franklin D. Roosevelt famously called the arsenal of democracy. But on the flip side, we have soft power. This is all about culture, attraction, persuasion, and shared values. It's basically the difference between forcing someone to do what you want and making them actually want the exact same things you want.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the arsenal of democracy, officially defined soft power, and then we're going to dive into three awesome case studies: America's cultural engine, India's heritage and Bollywood, and Japan's kawaii and anime, before wrapping it all up with hegemonic stability.
Section 1. The Arsenal of Democracy.
To truly understand modern cultural influence, we first have to hit rewind and look at the historical baseline of hard power. It really shows you just how drastically the global game has changed. Let's go back to December 29, 1940. This is over a year before the attack on Pearl Harbor even pulled the U.S. into World War II. President Franklin D. Roosevelt gives this famous radio broadcast, calling on America to be the arsenal of democracy. Now, he definitely wasn't talking about exporting movies or pop music. He was promising to supply the Allies with literal implements of war: planes, tanks, guns. He was relying entirely on heavy industry and pure military might to project influence.
And the scale of this was just unbelievable. The top contractors for munitions were absolute industrial titans. We're talking General Motors, Curtiss-Wright, and the Ford Motor Company. This massive effort transformed entire American cities like Detroit and Cleveland into sprawling factories of defense and coercion. This is exactly how a superpower exerted its will in the mid-20th century, through sheer, unadulterated industrial and military output.
All right, Section 2. Defining soft power. So, if tanks and aircraft engines defined power back in the 1940s, how do we transition from literal arsenals of weapons to cultural arsenals of influence? Well, the term soft power was actually coined by political scientist Joseph Nye back in 1990. It is the ability of a nation to persuade and influence foreign actors through its culture, its political ideals, and its foreign policies, rather than through coercion or force. Instead of demanding compliance with a gun, nations operate through attraction. They foster admiration. When people around the world admire your lifestyle, consume your art, and share your core values, your nation gains an immense amount of strategic leverage.
Moving on to Section 3, America's cultural engine.
You literally cannot talk about American soft power without talking about Hollywood. Through a phenomenon that's often called Hollywoodization, the U.S. effectively exports its core identity, its societal norms, and its aspirational ideals everywhere. Think about it. American cinema constantly showcases these grand narratives of freedom, resilience, and democracy. So when a global audience sits down to watch these films, they aren't just being entertained for 2 hours. They are consuming an American lifestyle and viewpoint. It makes the American experience a global aspiration.
Just wrap your head around this number: 60 to 75%. That represents Hollywood's massive, dominant share of the entire international film market today. Since the 1980s, the market is completely transformed. Today, international audiences actually drive way more of Hollywood's financial success than the domestic U.S. market does. That is a colossal engine of cultural influence broadcasting across borders every single day.
But hey, America's cultural engine definitely doesn't stop at the movie theater. Beyond films, the United States projects soft power through this massive digital arsenal. Silicon Valley is practically a global symbol of the nation's inventive spirit. Tech titans like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Netflix act as these gigantic global platforms. They don't just sell software, they distribute American ingenuity and shape global trends on a daily basis. They're basically the modern-day equivalents of those 1940s industrial giants we just talked about, but instead of exporting tanks, they're exporting ideas.
Section 4. India's Heritage and Bollywood.
Next stop on our world tour, we're looking at a nation playing a very different, deeply historical game. India is this culturally abundant nation, leveraging literally thousands of years of heritage to act as a Vishwaguru, or a world teacher. India uses its immense diversity. We're talking over 122 major languages and around 2,000 distinct ethnic communities to completely captivate global audiences. From classical dances to timeless epics like the Mahabharata, India presents itself as a beacon of deep spiritual wisdom. Heck, even its vibrant cuisine serves as a major diplomatic tool in thriving Indian restaurants all over the planet.
And this isn't by accident. India's approach to soft power is highly organized and guided by 5 core pillars: dignity, dialogue, shared prosperity, security, and cultural links. By blending its rich cultural depth with its broader diplomatic goals, India isn't just sharing its art, it is actively trying to foster an Asian century that is marked by peace and mutual prosperity.
125 million. That is the estimated number of people practicing yoga worldwide today. Yoga is deeply rooted in ancient Indian spiritual traditions, and it promotes physical well-being while projecting India's commitment to peace globally. It's so universally loved that the United Nations actually designated June 21st as International Yoga Day, which is a monumental win for India's soft power outreach.
And we absolutely cannot forget Bollywood. This cinematic powerhouse is a $3.5 billion industry that, back in 2019, was pumping out a staggering 2,446 feature films in a single year. With a loyal viewership that spans over 70 countries, Bollywood's incredibly emotive storytelling and family-centric values foster real cross-cultural dialogue globally. Bollywood is just an undeniably powerful cultural ambassador for India.
Section 5. Japan's kawaii and anime. Honestly, this is one of the most remarkable national rebrands in modern history. Following the utter devastation of World War II in 1945, Japan had to completely shift its global image away from being an aggressive military power. By the 1970s, they started leaning hard into kawaii, or cute culture, perfectly captured by the creation of Hello Kitty in 1974. Fast forward to 2010, and the Japanese government officially launched the Cool Japan campaign to actively harness and monetize these cultural assets globally.
By embracing this kawaii culture, alongside breathtaking artistic masterpieces from places like Studio Ghibli and universally loved games from Nintendo, Japan successfully flipped the script on its entire international image. They transitioned into a nation that the world perceives as friendly, non-threatening, and endlessly fascinating. Today, anime stands as Japan's top cultural export. It's an incredibly effective tool for cultural diplomacy that lets Japan communicate its values to a massive, die-hard international fan base.
And grounding this in hard economic reality, the expenditure in the Japanese animation industry nearly doubled in just 9 years, jumping from $13 billion in 2011 to $24 billion in 2020. This massive surge was driven heavily by international demand. It just goes to show that a well-executed soft power strategy doesn't only win hearts and minds, it literally drives immense economic growth.
Finally, Section 6. Hegemonic Stability.
So zooming way back out to the macro view, we have to ask, how does all this cultural attraction actually help maintain global order? Well, it's summarized perfectly by a concept called hegemonic stability theory. Basically, when a dominant power effectively uses soft power, exporting its movies, its tech, its values, it makes its overall power feel safe and attractive to the rest of the world. In return for this cultural magnetism, the world willingly agrees to live within that system, keeping alliances strong and markets open. Soft power allows a dominant nation to maintain an open global system through shared values, rather than relying on constant, exhausting military force. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to really challenge how you view power today. Think about the influence of a blockbuster movie, the reach of a Silicon Valley app, the global devotion to yoga, or the economic juggernaut of anime. In the 21st century, as nations constantly jockey for influence without tipping the world into catastrophic conflict, is the most powerful weapon a tank, or is it a movie? Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep looking closely at the culture you consume, because it just might be shaping the entire world order.